Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Appleton. My name is Jean Roberts, and I am president of the League of Women Voters of Appleton. We are sitting or standing on traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of indigenous peoples. Here where I sit and stand, these are the homelands of the Menominee people. The Menominee Nation, or people of the wild rice, have always been in what is now Wisconsin area, as well as Michigan and Illinois. According to their creation story, the ancestral bear emerged from the ground at the mouth of the Menominee River, and the creator transformed the ancestral bear into human form as the first Menominee. Bear was joined by eagle, crane, sturgeon, and elk. These ancestors continue to live and influence the Menominee as caretakers of creation, and we thank them. By acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional land of these sovereign nations, we honor with gratitude the land itself and all of the winged, two-legged, four-legged, many-legged, and the water peoples who have stewarded the land and water throughout the generations and for generations to come. Thank you for your interest in this forum and for your support of the democratic process. This is a nonpartisan candidate forum for voters to get to hear what the candidates have to say. It is not a campaign event and not a debate. We stand for civil discourse. The candidates understand that no candidate information is allowed to be displayed during this event. This Zoom forum is being recorded and will be made available on both vote411.org, the League's Webby Award-winning website, and the League of Women Voters of Appleton website. It is also being live streamed on Facebook. We ask all those watching this forum to refrain from making any partisan comments on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. Any partisan comments will be deleted to conform with the League of Women Voters nonpartisan policy. Any questions sent to the League's email will be sent to the candidates, and their answers will be added to the candidate voter guide. The League of Women Voters of Appleton owns the copyright to any audio or visual recording to these events. Unauthorized videotaping falls under the rules of the FCC, which requires that a forum must not be edited and must be broadcast in its entirety, either live or reasonably soon after it takes place. In addition, the League of Women Voters of Appleton candidate forums must not be referenced as a source in any campaign materials. While there is not a sign language interpreter, there will be closed captioning available on the YouTube video, which will be available through the League of Women Voters website. Prior to tonight's forum, residents were invited to submit questions to the League email. Some of those questions will be heard tonight. These questions have been sorted before they were sent forward. This was not to eliminate questions, but rather to group them into like categories so that we have the opportunity to ask as many questions as needed to cover a variety of topics. We have a timekeeper. The League has always found this process to be a good means to keep us on track and moving along. It is not meant to cut people off or diminish the importance of a response, but simply to use our time wisely. We trust that our local Appleton candidates will respect these constraints. And finally, we would like to acknowledge the candidates from District 15, Chad Doran and Walt Hamburger Lankowski. We are all grateful and we thank them for their willingness to run for office and serve their community. Jacqueline Klimaszewski is Director of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters. Jacqueline has planned and organized this forum. She will be presenting the questions to the candidates. Jackie?
Thank you, Jean. Let me add my gratitude to the candidates for your time this evening to share your viewpoints. And thank you to all the viewers out there for caring enough to be informed when you cast your votes in the election on April 6th. I have the pleasure to moderate the forum this evening. As Jean described, I have some questions from the League and some submitted from interested citizens ahead of time. All questions submitted, asked and unasked, will be sent electronically to the candidates. Their written responses will be on the League website for you to view and use when you are deciding your vote. For each question, Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond, monitored by our timekeeper. And Julie, just hold up the paddles so everyone can see what you're going to be looking for. I may alter the time for longer or more involved questions, and then we will alternate candidates' replies. So whoever starts first in the first question, the other person will start the next question, and we will move on through. We will have 2 minutes to begin, so that you can introduce yourselves, give your background and your interest in the city council seat going forward. And we will proceed with the order that you will appear on the ballot. So candidate Doran will go first, and then candidate Lankowski.
Okay. Thank you to the league, first of all, for hosting this forum. I appreciate the opportunity to share our views, and thank you to our residents who are interested in this democratic process. I think it's really important for our residents to be involved in local government. That's why I'm running as someone who's interested in serving in local government. My background is in communications. So I've worked in communications for all of my career, both as a reporter covering the Fox cities for local television stations. And I spent 6 years working for the city of Appleton as well, doing communications for the city and the mayor's office. So my role gave me the opportunity to work with city staff on a daily basis. So I'm very familiar with all of the staff, very familiar with the processes and how the city operates. And I think that really gives me a great advantage in knowing how the city works. I also know and have worked with past and present council members, so have an understanding of how the council process works as well. And I think that affords me the opportunity to really bring a unique perspective to the council. I've spent the last 6 weeks already knocking on doors, talking to residents in our neighborhood to get a sense of what it is they're interested in, what issues they have in the city that they want their council member to address. Because I believe it's important for me as a representative of people in our district to be out there talking with them and hearing from them exactly what it is that they're interested in, to have their council member represent them for. So I'm excited for the opportunity, grateful for the conversations that I've already had, and looking forward to getting out there and continuing to have those conversations with our residents to effectively represent District 15 on the Appleton Common Council.
Thank you. Candidate Lankowski.
Hey everybody, my name is Walt Lankowski. I guess I'm better known in the world as Walt Hamburger. I'm a touring musician, singer, songwriter, producer, and probably best known in Appleton through my charity efforts through the Walt Hamburger Foundation. I'm the president of that. It's an organization we started in 2017 to start raising money for local animal rescues as well as national and international rescues, but our focus is mostly in the Fox Valley, as well as artists in need. I'm a very political person, but I never thought I would find myself running for office. This is something that's new to me, and I guess that differs me from my opponent. But it's something I'm very much excited to do. As I've gotten into this process, I've been very excited about the support I've received from the community, and I'm looking forward to learning more about my neighborhood and what I can do to be the best for that. On that note, you will not see me going door to door. This is a pandemic. I've been doing everything I can, including basically not working for the last year, just to keep me and my family safe from this pandemic, and we're so close to the end. So we will be dropping lit, and you'll see signs and stuff, but I have made a pledge from day one to not go door to door and not put anyone at risk, including myself. So I'm very excited to be here today to answer your questions and to learn more about this position. And I hope to represent you in the next couple months and in the next couple years.
Thank you. And we will start with candidate Lankowski for this next question, and then go to candidate Doran. What is the value of a library to a community, and who does it serve?
I believe the library should serve everyone. I think it is one of the greatest things that we have between libraries and parks. These are things that I wonder if we brought up today as a new idea, whether we'd have or not, because it seems like an extreme idea, but it's a place where anyone can go to learn about something, to use resources like the internet just to get together, to meet someone. I think this particular Appleton library is going to be key for revitalizing a part of downtown that has become kind of a black hole. I mean, we used to have Mongo's there, Tom's Garage, different buildings have been taken down. And I think when we rebuild the library where it is, or do the remodeling that we need to, it's going to be a really nice thing for downtown to start bringing people back into that community and making it a nice, safe, fun place for people to to get the resources. I mean, a library can help a student, it can help a family, it can be a place that people can apply for jobs. There's so many different things that they can do. I've played concerts there. So very pro-library, as if anyone would be not a pro-library, I suppose.
Thank you. Candidate Doran?
Well, library is kind of like the central hub of the downtown in Appleton, obviously, and in any city. Show me a city that people want to move to, and I'll show you a fantastic library in that city, because libraries are essential for learning. They're essential to provide service for residents, and libraries are kind of just that cornerstone of a foundation of a community. And in Appleton, it's no different. Our library has served our community well for a number of years. It is certainly in need of some upgrades, and I'm excited that that process is moving forward. I've been a part of the past two processes to look at building a new library, so I'm very familiar with how those processes worked, and then what didn't work that ultimately led to those processes not going forward. But I'm a big supporter of the library. It's a place that people come to learn, to gather, and to grow. And I think it's important that our library meets the needs of our community both today and for the future. And I think that the process going forward is going to take a really hard look at that and what those needs are. And I believe that we'll find something that will really meet those needs of the community, and that it's something that our community can be proud of. And it will be a catalyst for other development on the north side of the downtown. And that will help our city grow as well.
Thank you. And we'll start with candidate Duran for this next one. According to an article in the Post Crescent, the city has budgeted $2.4 million this year for library design services. And it is also identified that $12 million will be needed in 2022 and again in 2023 for construction. Do you support this level of expenditure for library construction? And please explain why or why not.
Sure. I support the level of expenditure that's needed to give the community a library that it can be proud of and that will meet the needs of our residents both today and in the future. There's no question that this library is going to be a very expensive building, whether it ends up being remodeled and expanded or built new on the site that it currently sits. It's going to be a big investment in the future of Appleton for our residents. And it's something that I think that we have to take very seriously and take a good hard look at. But I believe that over the past couple processes that the city's been through, having been a part of the staff looking at those, I'm very confident that the staff does its homework and has and will continue to do so as it works with the architect that has now been selected for this new process to refine that project to make sure that it meets the needs that we're looking for and does so in the most cost-effective manner possible. And I think it's important to note too that as that process moves forward, those numbers that are out there for the potential budget for the library are numbers that the city could look at borrowing in the future. That money hasn't been borrowed yet, and the city will only borrow as much as it needs to complete that project. So those figures could change, and certainly the council will be looking at that very closely. But I'm confident that the city will do its best to keep the costs as reasonable as it can to meet the needs of our community.
Candidate Lankowski.
So regarding the library, I met with the librarian about a month ago, and she walked me through how this has been not a new subject, but this has been something that they've been going on for over 10 years, and how they've looked at the Bluff site and they've looked at remodeling. They've gone and visited other libraries throughout the country. They've seen different uses, whether it's a mixed use or it's just the library rebuilding, remodeling, all these things. So this isn't a new issue for Appleton, and I think that when Mayor Woodford came in and set up very clear budget for this year and the next 2 years, that's a great idea. One of the questions I asked was, is that a lot of money? Because, when you're talking about building, I don't know what a lot of money is. I'm learning this, and it seems like that is the right amount. And really, that's what we need to be spending on our, again, my opponent brought up a great point. The central hub of Appleton can be the library, and we will have businesses that grow around that. So I think this project is great. I very much support it. With all these things, I'm willing to, learn more about it as it comes up. But from what I've heard so far, I think that this project is well designed and has a bright future. Finally, we're going to get something done with the library.
Thank you. We'll start with candidate Lankowski for this next question. If elected, will you support municipal efforts to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 under existing laws as supported by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities?
Absolutely. We are so close to getting to a point where we can get back to real life. I don't know anyone that hasn't been affected by the pandemic. I know I have. I think my last concert in public was just a year ago, 2 days or something. And we didn't know this was coming at this extent. We knew that we were going to get shut down for a while. And personally, I've been not exactly thrilled with us how Wisconsin and even just the United States, maybe just in the world, have handled this. I think we got tired of being told, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And people started taking it less seriously. And that's why it never went away. Now that we have the vaccines coming out, there's hope. And they're not going to fix everything. But I think that it's still very, very important that everyone be extremely responsible, be wearing masks anywhere that they're inside, and even outside if they're near a bunch of people. And any kind of, unfortunately, because of the way that certain government officials have handled the pandemic at a statewide level, a lot of local municipalities have been forced to make these decisions on their own. I've been very happy with Appleton's stance. I think we could be a little bit stronger on that, but I really want to get back to a point where we can all get together, like we all love to do in Wisconsin, at a crowded bar or supper club, concert venue, anything, and just be free again. And the way we do that is by wearing our masks and being responsible and getting it done together.
Candidate Duran.
Well, I think we do see that the finish line hopefully here is near. I think it's worth pointing out to people that I was part of the city staff when this pandemic started, working in communications for the city. So I was right there from the beginning with the city and the staff, responding to this pandemic, helping educate our residents about what was happening and what we wanted them to do. And so I'm very familiar with the response that the city's had. I think the city has done a good job, as has the Fox cities as a whole. This hasn't been easy on anyone. This is a life-changing event that's going to affect us all for a very long time. And I think that the council's role in all of this is really reaching out to residents and reaching out to our businesses and understanding what their needs are as we get to the finish line of this pandemic and what it's going to take for us to return to normal. And I think so the city has, the city as a staff has a role in that, and the council's role is to support the staff and support our residents and our businesses to help meet their needs with what it's going to take for them to move past this, hopefully sooner rather than later. And whether that's in the form of helping distribute grants or giving the staff the tools that they need to continue to fight the pandemic. I'm excited about that opportunity, and I think there are good people working on this. And I think we are getting close, and hopefully we'll have life back to normal here very soon.
Candidate Duran, how much time do you anticipate spending on the position, and how do you intend to keep constituents informed about city issues in your participation on the council?
Yeah, the role of city council has always been a part-time position. And I always tell people that it's really what you make of it. It's the amount of time that you put in. I take the role very seriously. Having served in a public sector capacity before working for the city, I know how important it is to help our residents understand the workings of the city. In fact, I created programs for the city while I was there that have been recognized with national awards for building engagement, getting people involved in the community. So I very much understand what it takes from that standpoint to get people in local government. I have a passion for public service, and I have a passion for our residents understanding what the city does and why, helping them understand that when they get their tax bill at the end of the year, that the service and the value that they get from that, so that they understand that while our taxes might not be as affordable as some might like, that not all of that money goes to the city. And then helping them understand the value that they get from that portion that goes to the city. Those things are important to me. And as a representative on the council, I certainly will make it a priority with my communications background to continue to reach out to residents. I've talked to them already for the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks now that I've been out knocking on doors, talking with residents, hearing what's on their mind. That's important to me because I think that's how, as a representative of our neighborhoods, that we meet the needs of our neighbors.
Thank you. Candidate Lankowski.
So for this, I would have to draw back. Again, I have to be very honest, I'm very new to government. So I have to draw on my other experiences as a musician. And I used to work at Affinity Healthcare. For 7 years, I was a supervisor there. And when I got that job, I was only 9 months into the job. And every person that reported to me, it was about 25 at the end, had been there on average 20 to 25 years. And so obviously I knew less about that job going in than the people that worked for me. And that became my strategy from the start. Talk to the people that are actually doing the work, talk to the people that are, this was transcription, so they're the ones typing up the reports that the doctors do. and learn what they need. And my job as a supervisor was simply to do my best to give them the opportunities to succeed. And I feel like, especially with the pandemic, we need to find different ways that people can get in touch of local government, any kind of government, than just talking to people. I mean, I'm thinking about how much different this election would be if it wasn't pandemic. You know, they'd have events and things like that, but we can't do that. And again, like I've shared my personal view about going door to door. So I think that there's going to be, we're going to need to find opportunities for people to get in touch, whether it's through email or through websites or Facebook or things like that. And so far, I've been overwhelmed with the amount of communication that I've gotten just from our Facebook site. People reaching out, letting me know what they care about, and it's exciting. So I'm hoping that I can bring those experiences I do have, which are outside of government, and do the best I can to just listen to the people. This is a nonpartisan position, which is cool. We're here to represent our neighborhood, and that's what I want to do.
Thank you. And we will start with candidate Lankowski for this next question about housing. Will you support ordinances or other measures, including updating the comprehensive plan to ensure affordable housing in Appleton? Do you have any thoughts about how the city can control the tearing down of affordable housing? Should there be a requirement to replace affordable housing when it's demolished?
Well, that's a lot of questions. I will say this. One thing that I've been really impressed with, whether it was when I was working just doing concrete work or as a band, having touring bands come through, people cannot believe how cheap it is to live in the Fox cities compared to the coasts. And I'm not saying cheap as in we can all just get whatever house we want, but they're talking about where they live, it's $2,000 for a studio apartment. Where we live, $600 to $800, you can rent a decent house. And so I think that that is an amazing thing that we have in the Fox cities, not just Appleton, but all around. So as a alderperson, I would very much support doing everything we can to keeping affordable housing here. I think about this a lot when we have the No Mow May. You know, we're trying to keep bees in our community. And the reason we're doing that is because if you take bees out of the ecosystem, everything falls apart. And it's the same thing with housing. You can take any section of people and how much money they make, cut them out of the system, and we all fall apart. So I think it's very important that, I mean, I'm telling you, I live in Appleton because I can afford to live in Appleton. I could live anywhere I want right now, you know, with my job because it's an airport away from wherever I'm playing. But I like Appleton. And one of the main reasons is because we can afford to live here and have a good life and have a house where my dog can run around the yard. So I think affordable housing, as far as like keeping, replacing housing with other affordable housing, if I have control to vote on something like that, that's something I would be very much in support for. But again, with any issue, I'm going to be asking my community, my neighborhood, what they think. And that's the opinion I'll bring to the council.
Thank you. Candidate Doran?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I note that I spent 6 years working with the city's community development department. So very familiar with the development process in the city, having worked with them and our other departments that are involved in that process as well. So I understand what it takes to help build a community. From the standpoint of do we need more affordable housing? Absolutely. Appleton's been ranked nationally as one of the most affordable places to live in the country. It's been named one of the best places to raise a family, one of the best places for children. So those things don't happen by accident. It's very intentional on the city's part to grow responsibly and grow sustainably. And I think the city's done a good job of those things. But I also know, having worked with the staff, that they know that there are areas where we can do better. The city has a comprehensive plan that identifies housing needs in the community. One of those areas was in the downtown. And now we've seen the fruits of that plan coming to fruition as the city has worked with developers to address those needs. So we have new downtown housing developments popping up and more in the future. And as far as affordable housing, the city has that as a portion of the comprehensive plan as well, knowing that there are areas of need where we could use more affordable housing. And the city's role really is working with developers to provide those opportunities. The city isn't in the development business, nor should we want the city to be in that business. That's not what the city does, and that's not what the council's role is. The role of the city and the council is to provide those opportunities for developers to come in and build those buildings. And the city's job is to provide the opportunity for them for that. And I believe that you know, there's more work that we can do there, and I'm excited about that opportunity.
Thank you. We'll start with candidate Duran with this question and then go to candidate Lankowski. We'll give you 2 minutes for this one, Julie. 2 minutes? Okay. Because I want you to delve into this one a little deeper. What are your thoughts for dealing with racial disparity in both the Appleton housing and policing as well as other opportunities that the Fox cities offer?
Sure. Well, I think the city's done a great job of addressing these issues head on, especially in the last few years. But I think it's also worth noting that the city has been addressing these issues for many years before that. Appleton's had a diversity coordinator position for over 20 years now. And that position was started in the police department by a very forward-thinking police chief. And so it's been an issue that the city has recognized and has worked towards addressing for a long, long time now. Our mayor that I served under, Mayor Tim Hanna, was very aggressive in addressing that, building those relationships with everyone in our community. And he made it a priority for our staff and a priority for the city as a whole. It was the city's role is really setting the example there for everyone in our community. And I think that's been ingrained in the staff, and that's something that I think is important for the council as well. And to view those issues through that lens of understanding what the needs of everyone in our community are is what will help us to address those issues going forward. I think that the role of council there can be encouraging staff and giving them the opportunities and then the tools for those things to happen. We have a citizen oversight committee now that the police chief is working with, which I think is another fantastic idea that helps build those relationships, bridge those gaps, and address those issues as they come up so that we can head off problems before they become bigger issues. And I think that's something that the city has done well and will continue to do well here in the future.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Lonkowski?
So this issue is very personal to me, as I'm sure it is to everybody out there. It wasn't that long ago that Appleton was a sundown city. And if you don't know what that means, I highly suggest you look it up. So to say that we are doing a great job and getting things done, I think no matter what we do, we can do better. The end goal has to be that anyone, no matter what color or creed, when they feel like they're in danger or in need of police help, they should be able to call the police and feel safe. And I'm not sure that I do that. I'm not sure that my neighbors do that. We need to get to that point. I think Appleton is a very safe community overall. I mean, like, our crime rate is very low. It's an exciting, safe place to live. I know a lot of people don't lock their doors, that sort of thing. But as far as like something happens at your house, and people don't want to call the cops all the time. Now, I reached out to Chief Thomas this week. I haven't been able to get in touch with him yet, but I'm hoping to learn more about it from the police's point of view, because I think this is definitely something that has to be come at from both sides. And it needs to be something that no matter what, whether we're doing well or bad, we need to be constantly working on. This is something that as brought forward in the national attention this year is very important to a lot of people, and people are very passionate about. And I hope that we can get to a point where at some point everyone feels safe getting the help they need whenever they need that help. And I think that constant communication between community leaders and the police is a great place to start. And I know they're already doing some of that. I just think that there's nothing that we could be doing that we can't be doing better in this already, if that makes any sense.
Okay, and Candidate Lonkowski, we'll start with you. Will you support increased, accessible, and affordable public transportation within our Appleton community and link that transportation to other communities?
Absolutely. I like the bus here. These days, because of COVID, I haven't really been going anywhere, so I haven't been using the bus or any kind of transportation for that matter. But I really like that Appleton is the hub to the community. I think that the Fox Valley is a big city. We're a big organism here, and Appleton is the heart of that. And I think that's what makes our community so cool. When you drive from Kaukauna down to Oshkosh, there's almost not a moment where there's not city there. And Appleton is right in the middle of that. So having the Fox Valley transit system be centered right downtown Appleton is very important. I remember getting detention in middle school and having to take the bus home because I missed the school bus. And there was a frustrating part of you missed the 4:30, you had to wait to the 5:30. And buses here, because we're in a smaller community, pretty much only go in one direction, kind of in a loop instead of going both ways. So I think if there was more of a budget available to do stuff like that, I think it's a really nice thing to have in a community. And as I'm lucky enough to get to tour around the world, when I do get to bigger cities, and again, we're not a huge city, so we don't necessarily need the same things that big cities do, but public transportation is the main way people get around. I think one of the reasons Appleton doesn't have to do that as much is we have a great amount of parking spaces and things like that available, but not everybody has a car and not everybody wants to drive. And drunk driving is a huge issue in our state. And I think that the more public transportation options we have for people is better. And I think as a state, we need to be using that more and more. So very much pro public transportation, as if anyone wouldn't be.
Candidate Durant?
Well, I very much support Valley Transit and the service that it provides. It's a key service for so many people in our community. I think there are employers whose employees rely strictly on Valley Transit as their means to and from work. There are employers in our communities here, both in Appleton and in other communities in the Fox cities, who couldn't operate their business without Valley Transit and the service it provides to some residents. So it definitely fills a need here in our community. I think what Valley Transit has seen from this pandemic and needs to look at going forward is ways to be more nimble. I know while I was working with the city, Valley Transit had started undergoing a study to reconfigure its routes and look at ways to provide more service more often. And I'm a big proponent of that because that, I think, is the barrier for Valley Transit to get to that next level, to be an even more valuable service for more people, to provide more routes more often. Now, whether that's more buses, smaller buses, I think that's something that they'll be looking at, and I encourage them to continue looking at as we look to see what the future of transportation is. But one of the other areas that I think that we can address that entire issue is by making our neighborhoods more accessible for business. We have big pockets of residential neighborhoods with no commercial around them. I'd like to see us look at our zoning laws in the city to allow a small corner grocery store or a small bodega type facility where people can just walk to and have access to without needing to take a bus or a car or ask for a ride somewhere.
Thank you, Candidate Duran. The next question, we're moving into climate. So have you had a chance to view the climate resiliency videos and recommendations from the League of Women Voters of Appleton and the city's climate task force? What action should the city prioritize to deal with these concerns? So talk about your ideas for ensuring a transition away from fossil fuels, reducing waste going to landfills, and center equity and sustainability plans.
Yeah, I think protecting our environment is something that all of the staff and I believe council members are aware of. I think it's a goal that most all of us are concerned about. We want our community and our world to be a better place for our children when we leave it. And I think that's important. I have read the committee's action plan, and I think there are some certainly lofty goals in there and some great ideas that the city can work to incorporate. What a lot of people don't know is that the city's already been doing the sustainability work. The city has a sustainability plan on its website that's available for people to go and look at. During my work for the city, we often talked about how we can educate people about some of the activities that the city has already done. There are great examples of that at the city's wastewater treatment plant. Turning biogas into renewable fuel that powers the plant is just one great example of projects that the city's already undertaken prior to this committee even being formed. I think what's great about this committee is that we have some very passionate and concerned residents who are have experience in some of these areas and are willing to donate that time to help the city do even better. And I think that collaboration is only going to benefit our community in the future.
Thank you. Candidate Lodkowski.
So with most of these kind of issues, anything where science is involved, my first gut is to find out what the scientists are saying. I know that Wisconsin only pulls about 10% of its renewable energy from renewable energy. So that seems like something we can definitely improve on. As far as Appleton specifically, there are some good things in place. And I think that's, we have first of all, we have a lot of trees, like things like that are really good. Not all these cities have that. It's really good for the air. But there's also lots of other steps we could be taking. I think that one of the things that I'm excited to get involved with once, if I am voted to get to city council, is to learn about these things and find out what's going well, what's not, and maybe taking a different approach at finding out what's the best way to handle situations like the environment. I have 3 nieces. I honestly, the thing that scares me the most about their future is our planet and the shape it's in and how much damage humanity has done to it in the past few hundred years, specifically since the Industrial Revolution. So I'm all for technology. I'm all for having better, faster ways to get things done as far as transportation and factories and things like that. But we need to be re-looking at what the Fox cities can do to make our part of the world a place that's safe. The Fox River has been one of the most polluted rivers in the entire world. Bay Beach is the first beach to close in Wisconsin, and it's still closed to this day. It's been over 100 years. So we're doing our best, but our past is made it so we need to keep working hard to make this a safe place. It would be nice to be able to swim or eat fish from the Fox River, for example.
Thank you. Mr. Lankowski, candidate Lankowski, we'll start with you for question 10. A question of concern to the league regards voting. So early voting in Appleton is, of course, the 2 weeks before the week of the election day. So that would be March 23rd. Got to get that plug in there. It is only at the city clerk's office, and with a few adjustments for the hours, it's during regular working hours. So expanding this, of course, would take additional funds, particularly for those large elections like last fall. Would you favor expanding this?
Absolutely. I thought that was the best part of what came out of the 2020 November election was the voter turnout it was great. I mean, we've never had anything like that. And one of the things that Appleton I thought did really well is not only could you do the absentee ballot where you mailed it in, but you also had the option to drop off the ballot right at City Hall, which is still there and available. So if you don't feel like going in the building up to the 6th floor, you can do that ballot box. But then they were also doing it at local fire stations, which I don't believe is something they're doing for this current election, but is something I would support bringing back. I live with my dad. It's a situation that we came up with when I started touring, and he's able to take care of the animals and I'm gone. He's a high risk person. It's one of the reasons I haven't been able to work in the last year. And it's very important to me that people like my dad get to vote and feel safe doing it. And so I think that everything we can do in that regard is extremely important to give people the opportunity to vote safely, feel comfortable voting. And I think that voting, it's a Tuesday in the United States, and a lot of people have to get off work for that. It's not convenient for people. They may have to get a babysitter or something like that. When we have absentee voting, people can vote ahead of time. They can get it done. And you're seeing that with the turnout, how much more accessible voting could be that way. So I would very much favor any way to get people to vote. I think voting is the heart of our democracy. And giving people an opportunity to do that every way we can is an awesome thing. So I think we're headed on the right track, and I hope that stays.
Thank you. Candidate Durant?
Yeah, voting to me is just one of those ultimate responsibilities that we have living in our country. The last thing that I tell people when I knock on their doors, make sure that they get out there and vote on April 6th. And I'm knocking on doors all over our district. And so I know I'm talking to people who are both Republican and Democrat, but I believe that it's that important for people to get out and vote and make their voice heard. As far as early voting hours go, early voting hours are governed by state law, so there are limitations as to what we can do. I will say that the city clerk's office in Appleton is fantastic. They work extremely hard. Did an incredible job with the November election. And I don't say that just because I know them from having worked with them, but I've also volunteered with the city to help with elections in the past. And I've seen how hard they work and how professional they are in doing that job. What my role with the city was helping educate our residents about what their opportunities were to vote. And that's something that I strongly encourage the city to continue doing, was to let residents know that they have options to come and vote absentee in person, that they have options to vote absentee by mail, and remind them of election day, and continue to hit those reminders so that residents are aware of these opportunities to be involved in how elections work and how our local governments work.
Thank you. And I will concur that we have an awesome city clerk and their offices is top notch. So candidate Duran, you'll start with you on this next question. How can the city find adequate funding for road repair and infrastructure without borrowing?
This is the biggest issues for me, honestly, that I've been talking about with residents. And I've heard from a number of them as I've been talking to hundreds of them already. As I said, in our district, everyone is concerned about A, the condition of the roads in the city, and B, how we pay for them. And again, putting a plug in for our public works department, they're an incredible group of people who work extremely hard. They're very professional, and they take great care of the roads that we have in the city. Everyone knows that we have roads that could be improved. The difficult balancing act is trying to keep the 300 plus miles of streets that we have in the city in drivable condition. And that's not always easy to do. When I started working for the city in 2014, the city was paying cash for almost all of the road projects it would do each year. When I left the city last year, it was almost the opposite. They were almost borrowing for almost all of those road projects. And we need to get back to the point where the city is paying cash for those projects to help keep our debt down. And one of the solutions that I would like to see us look into is to prioritize those roads in the general fund, the budget, to make sure that those roads are being paid with cash And that might mean we may have to sacrifice in other areas to make that a priority. But I believe that's something that our residents expect us to do, to make those tough decisions. And so that's something that I'm going to advocate that the council and the staff would look into, to prioritizing, making sure that we are paying cash for those roads to keep our debt down and keep our roads in as good of condition as our residents expect them to be.
Thank you. Candidate Lankowski.
This is a timeless debate, right? We want to keep taxes low, we want roads fixed. We want to keep taxes low, we want a road fixed. We want it to be nice out, we want construction to not be happening. I look at Oneida Street and the condition it used to be in, and see how it is now. I mean, that was a treacherous road to drive down for a long time, and it took a year to fix that up. And some businesses went out of business, some business stayed in business, but in the end, we had something good, and that was taxes that paid for it. I believe we have a wheel tax in Appleton, which helps pay for these sort of things. But I think we have to remember when we're paying taxes that it is our way of contributing to our community, and that's what these things are for. And I mean, I live just off of Madison Street, which is treacherous. When I drive on it, I got to go like this just to get 25 miles per hour, gets down to 5 miles per hour. So, and everybody in every neighborhood has a street like that. So I think I don't think it's wrong to be paying for roads. I think that it is one of the issues that has been brought up to me. Again, I'm not going door to door because we're in a pandemic, but in the people that have been communicating me through Facebook and through other ways of communication, that's been an important issue, especially with the plow debacle that we had a few weeks ago, and all the roads were frozen and we couldn't fix them. So the roads are a top priority to everybody, and we just have to remember that these things cost money, and I think that is what taxes are for. Besides other things like schools and public services, roads are a very important thing. They literally get us to where we're going. So I think we have to take that very seriously and be understanding of that.
Thank you. We'll start with candidate Lankowski. Will you support obtaining formula block grant funds as lobbied for by the National League of Cities to build back better this year, our infrastructure, workforce, housing, and to reduce gun violence?
Yes.
Okay.
Any kind of assistance for all those things would be fantastic. I don't know if I have anything I can expect of that. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Then candidate Duran.
Well, I absolutely support the staff looking at any opportunities we can to bring in funding that doesn't use tax dollars. So whether that be donations or whether that be grants, the city council's role in that is to really take a look at what those opportunities are and ensure that any sort of strings that come with those aren't going to hamper the city for the future. So I think we really have to be careful about those opportunities. But absolutely, we need to be looking at ways that are out there for us to take care of our community and improve our community without having to add additional burden to our taxes. That's what residents expect us to do. And so our staff, I know from my experience working with the city, staff do a good job. It's a priority for them to look at opportunities for grants. The city does bring in millions of dollars in grants every year for various different projects. I have written and earned grants for the city in a number of areas related to communications and helping some of our departments with equipment. So I think the city does a good job of that already, and it is a priority for them.
Okay, we'll start with you, candidate Duran, and this is another tax question. Local taxes for property owners have increased over 22% in the past 5 years, during which time the cost of living has increased only 8.7% and Social Security 8.1%. Appleton taxes, when combined with school taxes, comprise 80% of our property taxes. What would you do to ease this trajectory? I can say that, trajectory.
Yeah. I love a question like this because I think it brings up that opportunity to talk about one of the programs that I created with the city to help our residents understand how this process works. And that was our App Academy, a citizens academy that I created that has been copied by governments around the country now, that really shows residents how the city operates from every single department. And the very first lesson that our departments would teach is about finances, the city's finances and how it affects our residents. And as a part of that, we had long discussions about property taxes. And one of the fun facts that people learn is that not all of the money that you pay in property taxes comes to the city. So it's one of those issues I think that we have to continue to be mindful of and addressing, and making sure that we are as responsible as we can be in all the spending that we do. And it's a priority for me, and I know it's a priority for the staff who very carefully look at their budgets every single year. And the council's role is in scrutinizing those and ensuring that we're meeting the needs of the community without overspending and expanding beyond our capabilities. And the city has a built-in debt limit. It's governed by the state has a limit, and the council has its own self-imposed limit on debt. And I think that's important to make sure that we are staying on top of that for the community.
Okay, Candidate Lankowski.
I think the inherent issue with a question like that, not the question itself, but maybe just the numbers that you quoted, that the cost of living and the cost of the amount of money people are making are not the same. And so people are making less money, but things are costing more and more. And that's something that we're looking at across the nation right now. It's a big discussion right now with the minimum wage. I think that the Fox Valley has competitive incomes for people. I know that when the brief time I did concrete, a lot of people are moving here to work the factories and stuff. That's what we're building houses for, working in the different various paper industries and things like that around here. But again, I understand that taxes are here to pay for our services. That's what they're for. And so I think that they're very important, but I think it's important to look at the issue that's making this more difficult. If taxes are going up, income also has to come up. I mean, we have to, as other cities have done this on their own. I'm not saying Appleton is ready to implement their own minimum wage or anything like that, but it's something I think we could look at is how are people being treated fairly as far as what they're being paid for their jobs, so that we can do things like own a home. I have never been able to own a home, but my line of work has maybe set me up in that direction. But other people get their college degree, they get out and they can't get a job. So there's things that we need to be looking at, maybe more at why those numbers are there, as opposed to now we have this problem, what do we do? Maybe figure out why we got in this problem in the first place.
We'll start with Candidate Lankowski for this next one. So if you want to reduce or cut spending by the city, what would you cut and by how much?
Holy cow. Well, this one I'm not specifically prepared for. I'll be very honest. I don't really know the budget that well for our city. However, cutting spending is not exactly my platform. My platform is to listen to the people in my community and find out where we need to spend funds. Things that I'm passionate about are parks, libraries, good road conditions, good schools, the basic things that we should all want in our community. So I don't have any interest in going in there and being like, let's slash the budget. That's just not who I am. But I will be willing to listen to why we do things the way we are, and figure out if there are places that we're overspending, if there are things that we don't need and we're doing it just because we've always done it that way. I will be the first person to stand up and say, why are we doing it this way? Like, maybe we need to think of things a different way. But I am speaking of this in a very generalized form because I don't know the specific answer to this question. I just want to be honest about that.
Okay. Candidate Duran.
I think that process is not something that one individual person makes that decision for. It really involves process for the entire council and for the staff to work collaboratively on. And I think that's an important point to make. I do believe that there are certainly areas we can continue to look at. And one of them is the city's capital project budget. That's where, generally speaking, the biggest, most expensive projects come, and they're budgeted for a couple of years in advance. And I think that portion of the budget generally has the biggest impact on the city's debt limit as well. And so looking at ways that we can be really mindful of the projects ahead, including the new library, which we know is going to cost somewhere upwards of $20 to $25 million. That's a big expense that we're going to have to plan for. And so we may have to look at offsetting some of that spending in the future by perhaps not doing or perhaps delaying some capital projects that we may already have in the pipeline to account for trying to keep our debt limit down with this new spending we're going to do on the library. And so I think that's an area that we have to collaboratively work on, but something that our residents really expect us to be mindful of.
Okay, Candidate Duran, we'll start with you. To appropriately represent constituents as alderperson, a candidate must have strong work experience to fully understand the daily struggles our working class endured. Please share your real-life work experiences outside of politics that you will use to formulate decisions in this role, and be specific.
Yeah, well, I think both of my real career in communications is very applicable to this role, because When I was a reporter covering the Fox Cities and primarily based in Appleton, working a lot in the Appleton area, I built connections and understanding with the city and the staff, with businesses in our community to hear how they operate and what their needs were. I built connections with nonprofits in our area and some of the local leaders that we have. So it gave me a really great understanding of how the city works and how our businesses are all connected and affected by what the city does. And then my most recent role, having worked for the city for the last 6 years, gave me opportunities to even increase those relationships and understanding of the importance of how the city sets the tone for our community and businesses and people that live here by the work that the city does. I have a great understanding of that, and I think that's an important quality to bring to this role.
Okay. Candidate Lankowski.
So my two main careers have been working in healthcare for 7 years and then working as a musician for the past 20 years, a full-time job in the past 6 or 7 years where I've been touring. I think one of the main advantages I bring is that I get to see a lot of different parts of the world and how they do things. For instance, when I go to Canada and people get sick, they go to the doctor. And that's people in my generation don't necessarily go to the doctor, even if they have insurance, but some people don't still. And so there are certain things I've learned just by seeing how other people do things, how other cities do things that I think we'll be able to bring to the community, as well as my work with the nonprofit, with my Walt Hamburger Foundation, working with local businesses and other charities. And just through my music, I mean, I played at about every place you could play in Appleton and in the Fox Valley. I know a lot of people that way. I know a lot of people through the foundation work. And so I've been a resident in a city just like everybody else. And I think that I've been approaching this entire campaign as how would I want someone to represent me? And one of those main factors is just listening. And I think that's going to be the biggest key. And that's something that I have to do in all the lines of work that I do, whether it's through record labels or booking agents or venue managers or other places that donate money to our charity or different rescues that we help. You just need to work with people. You need to listen to people and do what's best for the community. So I think my work experience actually very much puts me in a good spot for a role like this.
Okay, and Candidate Lankowski, we'll start with you for this question. What are your biggest, what's your biggest policy priorities if elected?
Well, I think right now, in this very moment, the thing we need to take most seriously is the pandemic. It is still lethal. I don't know about my opponent, but I've lost people to COVID. I take this extremely seriously. My sister is a doctor. She got COVID because she was helping COVID patients. That was one of the scariest weeks of my life. Talking to her on the phone, hearing her struggle to speak. This is a healthy 30-year-old woman. We need to get this taken care of and take care of it very seriously. We cannot be going door to door. We cannot be having large functions. We cannot be putting ourselves in situations where we can hurt someone else. I think that's the main thing. Whenever we make a decision as a community, we have to be thinking about how we could be hurting someone else by our actions. And that means wearing a mask, even if you're outside, if you're going to be in close contact with people. It means not approaching people unexpectedly at their front door. It means giving people space to the grocery store line. And if we're not going to do that on our own, I think that the city does need to step up and make rules that make sure that that's something that won't hurt people. I mean, people have 500,000 people in our country alone have died from COVID. We have to take that seriously. And so right now, we're still going to be in that when April 6th comes around. I think that is the main issue that I would be focusing on.
Thank you. Candidate Duran.
Yeah, my biggest priority is listening to our residents and understanding what their needs are. And that's a lot of that conversation has centered around the pandemic and how we recover from this. And the city certainly will play a role in that. It has been from the beginning, as I mentioned. I was a part of that, helping the city stand up the Emergency Operations Center to get our residents understanding the work that we were trying to accomplish and what we wanted them to be doing. The continued operations of the city and making sure that the city has the resources that it needs to help our residents and our businesses while this pandemic is still ongoing. And then looking at ways that we can change the way we do things now to better meet the needs of our residents and our businesses here in the future as we get to the tail end of this and can kind of start returning to normal. Those, I think, are the most immediate needs and biggest priorities that the city needs to be focusing on in the future.
Okay. And we are down to the last two questions, gentlemen. So we'll start this one with candidate Duran. What would you support to improve the quality of life in District 15?
Well, I think this isn't a question really about what I want. It's what our residents want and what they need. And I think one of the beauties of District 15 is that we are really a collection of wonderful neighborhoods. There are really tight-knit pockets of different neighborhoods that I sort of identify in our different areas of just our district, not let alone the city itself. And it's awesome to be able to walk around and see how our neighbors interact in these different neighborhoods. And so I think we're really blessed in this area to be one of the kind of newer parts of the city in terms of just kind of the recent past of the city. So our roads are in great shape. Our neighborhoods are in good shape. We have some of the newer schools in the district. So I think we have a lot of good things going in that sense, but really what the priorities of our residents are is what will be the priorities that I try to bring to the Common Council.
Okay, candidate Lodkowski.
I actually agree with almost all of that. I think our neighborhood is awesome. I like that it's split mostly by the 441. There's a bridge that connects it. I think there are some roads in our neighborhood that need some work, but I think every neighborhood is like that. But honestly, I'm going to give you almost the same answer. I think that was a good answer. I think that we have a really cool neighborhood with a few parks. Maybe we could use more parks, but I like that we have working class, we have upper middle class, we have middle class. Like we have a really cool. I mean, have you guys seen the mailboxes south of 441 in that little neighborhood? It's fascinating. They have like little light bulbs in every single one of them. Like I loved walking my dog through there. I feel very safe in my neighborhood. I used to joke that I could walk around my neighborhood with my dog at night with a $100 bill taped to my belt and I would feel safe. And I think that's one of the cool things about Appleton. And it's one of the reasons I moved into this neighborhood. So yeah, I think he nailed it on the head. This is a cool neighborhood. So what I would do for them is listen and you know, I'm part of that community and I want it to be better and safer, but it doesn't need to be that much safer. I think we're in a really cool part of the city and I think Appleton is the heart of Wisconsin. I mean, I think this is getting to be kind of mushy, but I really like where I live and I'm excited to be running for this exact position.
So we'll start the last question with candidate Lodkowski, and it's really looking into the camera and saying to your residents in District 15 why they should vote for you.
Well, thank you again for the League of Women Voters for having me. Thank you, Mr. Duran, for meeting me in this. I love that this is a nonpartisan election. I love that our community is being represented. I think you'll be well represented whoever you vote for. I hope you vote for me because I think that I'll do a very good job in this role. I'm excited. I have a good relationship with several members of City Council already. I have a good relationship with the mayor. I'm excited to see where this can go. I hope that everyone gets out and votes. I think that it's really, really, really important. These elections that aren't part of presidential elections can sometimes slip under the rug. So I think it's really important you go to the website right now and get your ballot, your absentee ballot. Drop it off at City Hall if that feels safe. They have a box right there. Make sure you vote. If people want to volunteer for the campaign, contact us through our website. That's a great way to do it. And if anybody has questions, to send messages that way too. I want to do what's best for my community. I want my community to feel like they have an older person that they can communicate with and feel like whether they're on this side of an issue or this side, I will listen to them and do what I can. Every city council meeting, every issue that comes up to do what's best for my neighborhood. And like we said before, I think we have a really cool neighborhood and I want to keep it that way.
Thank you. Candidate Duran.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak to residents directly. I think it's just a great way to reach out to people. I'm excited about this opportunity, and I think my passion really shows that for public service. I was committed to running for this position from day one. Long back in late 2020. I know our current alderman very well. He's a neighbor of mine. He and I had conversations about this position, and I knew that his time constraints were making it increasingly difficult for him to continue running. And so we had conversations about me running in his place with that, and we have a great relationship, and so that was important to me as well. But my experience, I think, really kind of makes the difference in this case. My experience working for the city, knowing the staff and the council and how the city staff operates is something that can be a huge benefit to the council to help them in understanding and seeing things in a different perspective. And I've gotten a lot of support from neighbors that I've talked to. I actually had a conversation with a neighbor who called me on my way to prepare for this tonight. a great conversation, and I really enjoy hearing from people while I'm out knocking on doors and talking to them in the various ways that we are through this campaign. And I think that experience that I bring really sets me apart in this race, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity coming up on April 6th.
Thank you. So I want to thank the candidates. And I just have a few closing comments to make and some closing slides with information that is of very big importance. And that is that the next forums that are coming up are for City Council District 3 and 5, but for your residents in your area, the Calumet County Circuit Court Branch 2 would be of interest, because I know that some of your residents do in fact live in both the city of Appleton and Calumet County, not Outagamie County like we always think. And this is a new position, so people aren't going to know the candidates, and here's an opportunity to get to know them. In our next slide, we have reminders, all those voting reminders that are important. So next Wednesday is the last, that's when voter registration online is open if you have not registered. After that, you need to register either in your clerk's office or on election day. Remember that if you are going to register and then vote, you need to have proof of residence as well as proof of ID. So online absentee balloting request, go to myvote.wi.gov. That's your go-to source for just about everything. The suggestion is to have those mailed in by March 23rd if you're going to mail them and not use the drop box. So in Appleton, the in-person absentee voting starts on Monday, and goes through April 2nd, but check with your municipality for the actual times if they're going to adjust those, adjust their regular working hours to accommodate you. And one more piece. This has been taped, recorded, and it will be on our website by tomorrow. Our tech people are really pretty good about this. It's amazing, as the other ones will be as well. I also want to say that to contact the League for Absentee Ballot Witness Assistance, there are some folks who are living alone, and they do need to have that absentee ballot witnessed. They're not yet ready in this time of COVID to go to the polls or do this personally, but the League knows the right way of doing that witnessing. And so if you contact us and you need to have your ballot witnessed, we will make some arrangements to have that happen for you. So checking out registration, polling location, any of that good stuff, myvote.wi.gov, and nonpartisan voter information is at vote411.org. I want to thank those candidates again. You are awesome. I really appreciate your timeliness and your responses. I have to thank all the members of the League who helped to make this forum work. Jean, Julie, Dave, Barb, Shirley, Ryan, Ligia, Miriam, and others. We have all the tech people behind us, and it's really a collaboration of volunteers to make this happen. So I want to wish all of you a good evening, and we hope you'll join us at the Calumet County Circuit Court Judge Branch 2 Forum next Tuesday. Right.